Because if there's one thing you can't change, it's people. You know, it's like my grandfather said, live not by way of expectations. You have to be able to live with or without. And that goes with people. Accept it. He was talking about acceptance. And don't live by way of expectation. Images in your mind. You put this screen in front of you of how you think people are or you hope them to be. But sooner or later, you're going to have to get rid of these images and see people exactly for who they are. And once you see people for exactly who they are, you see them clearly. And when clarity hits you, clarity has an intelligence of its own and a wisdom of its own and a strength of its own. And clarity is going to say, let it go. That was a statement that my grandfather had told me one day. I'm going to repeat it again. Live not by way of expectations. You have to be able to live with or without. The Buddha had said attachments bring about pain and suffering. So they're both talking about dependency, which is never a good thing. It's never a good thing to depend upon other human beings for your state of contentment, as well as materialistic things that you're only going to have in your life on a temporary basis because everything breaks down. You gain things, you lose things. So what this is talking about is the flaw of accumulating attachments. And when we're born into this Western civilization, which is mainly based upon capitalism, consumerism, areas of accumulating things, whether it's people or materialistic things. We live inside of a culture that is, you might as well say, equivalent to a person who is a glutton, a person who just wants to consume everything. And so you're living in a society to where everyone, even though they work within a system, everyone is strictly out just for themselves. And so we live in a world that is supposed to be a humanitarian quest for one another, as it was before Rome had came and took over. And when Rome had imposed their system on us, which was based upon the same system that Egypt had cultivated when they wanted to build their pyramids and their whole lifestyle and everything. See, what a lot of people don't understand is that we're living within those same systems. And the only thing that is, in fact, um, based upon what is called today moderation is only technology and everything that you look around and you observe cars, homes, even the social media forms of communication, how these cell phones have become um, something that a whole lot of people feel as though they can't live without their cell phones. I mean, This system has created so many addictions, dependencies, that it has become life or death in order to not only obtain these things, but to maintain these things. This is one of the reasons why the Buddha said attachments bring about pain. It was one morning I got off work, and as I was driving, I noticed how beautiful the sunrise was. This was around 6:15 in the morning. Now the sunrise was so beautiful, I had to pull over at this Walgreens I was at. I just lived right down the street from this Walgreens. I got out and observed this what is called a sunrise. And we all know that the sun doesn't move, but But what I noticed is how very beautiful the morning sky was. And I was looking into the heavens, what they call the heavens, the sky. And the sky was like, of course, the blue, the atmosphere. Beautiful morning clouds, yellow, orange, blue. It was breathtaking. I took out my cell phone. I was going to take a picture of it. And I felt the Creator said, no, just observe it. You can't take this with you. And this is the reason why this is so important for you to be still and observe. I just want you to just be still and observe it. Because even if you take a picture of this, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same from what is. So each day when we observe this type of beauty, taking a picture of it, you're cheating yourself. Because even if you take a picture of it, it means that your attention is not on it. We're not supposed to consume things like this with our cameras. We're supposed to stand and observe and take in here into our internal selves, because what we're observing is a part of who and what we are, actually. Observe it until it passes on. Don't try to take it with you, because you can't take it with you by way of technology. You take it with you by internalizing it, the feeling. The view becomes a perception and a feeling that you consume when you look at it and you just take a deep breath and you say, wow, this is beautiful. And you just be still and you take it in. That's equivalent. Well, of course, it's not as sacred as taking the moment in. You can't capture a moment, but you can consume, take in the moment. And even with the beauty of that, you still can't attach yourself to that by way of the camera. Because everything passes. Each day that passes, there's a lesson in that. So the Creator is putting something in front of you that you've never seen before. You will never see another sunrise like this one. This is the reason why you shouldn't. take it in, not with your camera, but with your very being. Take in the entire moment and take the moment with you. This is something deeper. You can't take a picture of this. It's not going to be the same. You can't capture that. You capture it with your internal being. And the beauty of this is that you will never see this day again. You will never see this day. So don't attach yourself to it. So each day that goes by, the lesson is observe, take in, and when the day passes, the lesson is be able to let it go so that the next day can present itself and has its own lesson of beauty and bliss. Because each day is different. Because each day is sacred. Each day has its moments of beauty in your personal relationship with yourself, because as I said before, what you're observing is actually you. Take in those moments. Put down the cell phones and just be still and just observe it. See, because the cell phone, trying to take a picture of it, that's a form of attachment. You're trying to take this moment with you. You can't take the moment with you by way of your cameras. We have to get back to observing the Creator's beauty. Take it in ourselves. See what it is. By way of the rise of technology, our sense of humanity is decreasing. And we're becoming less human, and we're becoming more humanoids, because we have become so attached to technology to where we don't stand still anymore and just observe the scenes. Just observe. We want to capture everything. Greed, possession, attachments, all of those things. Just take in the moment. Just take in the moment. Because you're going to take something with you that means much more than a mere picture. Because even if you try to take pictures, if you even take that picture and even compare that by way of technology to what is, it's not going to be the same. Because there is no better artist than God. No better artist than God. You're going to always get more from God than what man can give you by way of technology. We have to get back to observing things and not trying to consume everything with our camera. Oh, look at this, look at this. This was a beautiful morning. That's not what you consume. Your camera consumed that. But when you put the camera down and you let go of those things and you just be still and you have that moment with God, and God is showing you, look at this. I just want you to be still and look at this. Forget about your troubles. Just give me this little moment with you. I want to show you something. I want to show you yourself. I want you to be still just for a moment. And look at the glory of what I've created, because what you're looking at is you. Put down your cell phones one day. You should try that. The next time you see something natural, that is absolutely beautiful. And your mind says, take a picture of it. Don't take a picture of it. Just observe it. And get back in touch with nature, because what you're observing and what you're feeling, the beauty of all of that, it's you. The sun, the clouds, even the soft winds that you feel. Get back in touch with your humanity. Don't take a picture of anything. Just be still. And take it in, the being. Because you're adding to yourself. You want some medicine? Just be still and observe nature. As I tell a whole lot of people who have lost, they say they lost their loved ones. Only their organism has stopped functioning. They've gone back to everything that bears life and power. Know that you have not lost any loved ones. You have to get to know them on a spiritual basis now. Their organism, this organism, has ceased to function. And they've gone back to being the sun, the wind, the rain. You want to spend time with them? Just get up in the morning and watch the sunrise. Just observe the clouds and feel the wind. That's where they are. You haven't lost them. You gained them on a whole nother level. It's only the death of the organism. It's not the death of them. Attachments bring about pain. This is the reason why I see a lot of people go to cemeteries and they sit at the remains of their loved one, the remains. And I see people talking to grave sites. And as much as this may upset some of you, the only reason why this is going on is because, in spite of how many of us claim or say or even believe or feel that they know that their loved one is in a better place, if you really know that, if you really believe that, understand that when you go to the cemetery and you call yourself spending time with your loved ones, that's only their remains. And you look down at a tombstone and their name is on there, but that's not them. That's not them. That's equivalent to a butterfly leaving its cocoon behind, but it's free and is able to go wherever it pleases. They have returned back to everything that bears life and power. And they want you to understand that they are okay. The attachments implies being attached to their organism. This is the reason why we go to cemeteries and we're talking to tombstones. It's not them. It's not them. And we have to understand the different areas of attachments. Another example, when the Egyptians passed away, they thought that when they cross over to the next plane, they would be able to bring their personal possessions with them. This is the reason why when they were buried in those tombs that y'all call the pyramids, those are just tombs, which are equivalent to tombstones over here. And a lot of people think that when they go into the pyramids, that there's some secret knowledge about, mystical things. But those are simply stories about the people who were buried there, who are buried there. That's it. Some of their writings and philosophies and stuff, the same thing. You look down at a tombstone, you use somebody's name, loving father, uncle, or whatever the case may be. It's the same thing. But they have risen to another level of existence. There is no death. There's only a transition to another state of being. That's all it is. And this is coming from a man who died for close to 8 minutes in a motorcycle accident in 2014, February the 10th. You haven't lost anyone. And so the Egyptians thought that when they passed over, all of their possessions was going to be with them. However, they found out otherwise. And somebody else took all of their possessions. Who do you think Indiana Jones is based upon? They call themselves archaeologists, but they're nothing but grave robbers. That's all they are. But the whole thing is, attachments bring about pain. And this goes much deeper than you realize. In 1996, I was sitting up talking to some professors at UNLV, and they had brought up the fact that this federal government is slowly trying to get the land back, certain areas, so that they can start building upon it because they're running out of room. And so one of the areas that they're focusing on for a long time are cemeteries. And so what they're slowly doing is shutting down cemeteries. And this is the reason why you see a lot of cemeteries that look as though they are unattended. And if you go in those cemeteries, you look at the dates are far back. And if you pay close attention, they are raising the prices of funerals and lowering the prices of cremations. They're raising the prices of funerals beyond $10,000 and to $12,000. They're putting common funerals out of the financial reach of common people. And they're encouraging cremations by lowering the price of cremations from what used to be $1,000 now $500. Now people may say, well, what about Tombstone? Well, they've created websites. They've already got us attached to the internet. So what they're doing is they're creating websites to where if you want to spend time or pay your respects to your loved one, we have a link for you now to where you can go online, and as you sat in the cemetery talking to stones, now you'll be online. I miss you, Mom. Stuff like that. The rise of technology. So your loved ones are going to have websites now that you will have free access to visit. As you visit the cemetery, you're going to be able to upload their pictures and all of these things. And the reason why this is not transpiring as far as the federal government getting back that land is because they have to do it gradually and very slowly so that the general public won't be shocked and outraged. So they have to do it very slowly. And who is more able to wait it out than these rich politicians? So this is the reason why funerals are so expensive right now, and cremations are very much low. You're able to afford cremations for now for a reason, because they want that land back. And as I said, they already have us attached to the internet, attached to websites. So this is the type of world that you're living in. Now people may say, well, this is what's wrong with that? You decide. I'm just giving you the information. I'm letting you know what's going on in this Western culture. They don't respect the dead. This is the reason why they're doing this. They want the land back. And so they get you attached to one thing. They give you the ashes to take home. And you think you're carrying your loved one around. Hold on. Who got daddy? Who got daddy's ashes? Why do you want someone's ashes? You know, nobody ever questions that. How long are you going to pass these ashes down from generation to generation? Why don't you just let it go? Let them go. Now, some people do, they separate themselves from it. They come to realize that I'm going to pour this out to daddy's or mama's favorite place to set them free. They've already been set free. Pouring out the ashes is not setting them free. You're talking about their remains being contained inside of a vase. You have to understand, your thinking process have been formed that way because of attachments, and it brings about pain. But if you understand that once this organism has done what it's supposed to do, after this organism has lived out its purpose, it goes back. The spirit of the individual goes back to everything that bears life and power. So as I said before, if you want to spend time with your loved one, just get up and watch the sunrise. Just stand still and feel the wind blow against you. Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, it was one particular morning, I'm walking down the street out here in Las Vegas and the sun was shining. I looked down at my shadow and saw a reflection of my grandfather walking. It was incredible. It was incredible. So you have to get to know them on a whole nother level. You haven't lost them. You've actually gained them. The attachments is the organism and the materialistic things. So the Egyptians were very wrong. They've returned back to everything that bears life and power. Wanted to follow up on the subject, attachments bring about pain. There was an area in the first video where I had mentioned the cemetery dynamic. And I recall, see, because out here in Las Vegas, I tend to the grave of Brother Sonny Liston, the late Sonny Liston, the ex-heavyweight champion of the world. I've become very good friends with his family, and from what I was told, they did a DNA test, and I'm related to the Liston family, but I don't want to get into that. I want to stay with the subject. But I bring that up because Sonny Liston is a peer of mine, because I used to box out here in Las Vegas. I had 9 professional fights up under my belt, and I won all of them under 3 rounds. So I have a strong love and compassion for boxers. And so I take care of the resting place of Sonny Liston, his remains, where his remains are left. However, in going through the cemetery, one of the reasons why I have brought up having no emotional or psychological attachments after your loved one's organism has passed on. In other words, in its stage of functioning in this physical realm. I was walking not too far from Sonny's grave, And not too far from Sonny's grave, if you, I know it's impossible to, for you to know this, but not too far from Sonny's grave, if you're out here, if you walk towards the front of the cemetery, towards the management, there's an area over there where it's an area strictly for little children. And so on this particular gravesite, this child would have been, I believe, 5 years old. And so obviously his family came to wish him happy birthday, even though he had already passed. But what was up on top of the grave struck my attention very strongly. And it made me think of the pain of containing attachments. Now, I know that losing a child is something none of us who have children ever want to experience. However, it is a possibility. But up on top of this particular grave, there was a birthday cake, a real birthday cake, a double-decker birthday cake. There were presents, cards, all of this up on top and around this tombstone. Now, in this particular cemetery, which is called Davis Funeral Home, every Thursday, they come and remove items from up on top of the tombstone, as long as there are not too much going on in terms of the tombstone. But any loose items like a birthday cake, cards, all of those things are removed. And those who go there, they have this information. But the whole thing is, what struck my attention was they either bought or created an entire birthday cake as though this child was still in its living. And I stood there and I looked at this. I'm like, this little child has moved on. This little child has passed away. Why would you sit a birthday cake up on top of its tombstone, and in the area, the cards as though this deceased child is able to enjoy consuming this birthday cake, or this child is able to read these birthday cards. And so when I went home and I went into meditation, the only thing what was revealed to me is the attachment that the Buddha had said brings about pain. And so when you go this far to put a birthday cake and everything that I said on there, it also, to myself, reveals a parent that has not yet accepted the fact that their child has deceased. Now, that is a strong, very strong sense of attachment. In your mind, your child is deceased. But, and obviously in their heart, this child still lives. And that made me wonder, that has to be extremely painful you know, and I see a lot of people at that cemetery, another cemetery out here in Las Vegas, where I had known at least 6 or 7 people. And I see that so much with the birthdays, you know, the whole family is around and everything. But, you know, this is a very delicate subject to talk about. However, within this Western civilization, when it comes to our loved ones passing on and the whole funeral design and the burial design, it's designed to keep you suffering and in pain. When I was overseas in Dharamsala, India, my good friend of mine who has also deceased, his name was Edward David. We had attended a funeral of a friend of his. And the way that they do their funeral out there is that they build a huge stance that's created by logs, created by logs. You never see the body. People dance, people eat, and then when it's time for the ceremony of where this person whom everyone knows, it's time for them to go into the spiritual form to leave the planet. The body is burnt. And the smoke from the burning organism goes into the heavens. So there's nothing put in the earth with anyone's name on it. Even after the fire is lit, they push the body onto a they push the log thing. I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what they called it, but it is put on a boat, you might as well say, this foundation, and it has a sail on it, and it's pushed into a lake or an ocean, and as it's going away, it's burning. And while it's going out, the smoke is rising, the people are still dancing and celebrating, and they stand there and they watch until the fire goes out, which implies they've served their time here and they're in the spiritual realm. And the reason why it's put on the water is because in some cases they had found out, especially also in Mahatma Gandhi's funeral, his body wasn't pushed out into a lake. It wasn't pushed out. It was left there. And what they found out is that after the body had burnt completely up, there were people around picking up some of his bone fragments, And they came to understand that it was these people who had possession of the organism were the ones that were hardest to accept the fact that he had passed. Jiddu Krishnamurti was walking with a friend of his, brother Jiddu Krishnamurti, who was a spiritual philosopher over in southern India and pretty much all over the world. Just look him up. Him and a friend of his was walking through the downtown area of India one time. I believe it was Delhi. And they came upon a woman whose child had just died. And the way that she was holding the child, she was really grieving. She was really grieving. And there was her mother standing next to her, looking at her, and she was like helpless, like, what do I do? So Jiddu Krishnamurti, he gently came up to the woman and he rubbed right here to like comfort her. He rubbed that. You know, she looked up and he rubbed that. And after she stopped grieving and she got silent, he slowly reached out and he slowly took the child from her and gave the child to her mother. See, she had to accept the fact that her child had deceased. And as long as she was holding on to the child, rocking and grieving, she remained attached to the reality that her only child had died. However, she wasn't in a state of acceptance. She wasn't in a state of acceptance. And so when he took the child from her and gave the child to her mother, she suddenly calmed down and she was silent and she stopped grieving because she had finally accepted that her child had passed on. And I've already told you the ceremony of how they send their loved ones on. But what I see out here in America and in this Western civilization, death is much more difficult to bear because of the cemeteries. And you hear people say, I know my mom is in a better place. My mother's in a better place. My mother's in heaven, my father's in heaven, my child is in heaven. But people, when they say, well, I'm gonna go and pay a visit to mama, daddy, or my baby, so you go to the cemetery. And the grieving continues because you have an object and you have the remains in the earth. And due to the fact that you miss them, their organism is very near, but it's in the ground. It's no longer functioning. You have the tombstone with their name on it, as you know. Loving father, loving mother, loving son, etc. That does not help with detaching yourself from not accepting their passing. You know how it's commonly said, out of sight, out of mind. See, what is left of your loved one is the impact that they had upon your life. And the impact implies pleasant memories or complicated memories. Whether it's pure love, happy times, or difficult times. It's how a person's existence impacted you based upon how they treated you and how you treated them. I tell a lot of people that it's very important to have a good relationship with your children. That's why I always strive to have a very good, beautiful, and open relationship with both of my sons, because it's very important to me. Because when I pass on, whether it's in an accident or upon my deathbed, I want to know that I am right with my sons. I want to, what's most important to me, even above the success that I have and the success that I have forthcoming, what is most important to me in this living experience is to pass on having a very good relationship with both of my sons. That's what's important to me. And that goes back to the impact. So a lot, well, I can't say a lot, but a few people didn't understand, especially when I started talking about the graveyard. And I brought up of how the government is slowly moving everyone from the cemetery. And as time goes on, because I had experienced walking through a graveyard when I was out in Georgia, and it was unattended. And so when I went in, when I saw this, it helped me remember the meeting in 1996 that I had with these professors at UNLV about this particular issue. And so when I went in there, the weeds was high, but when I was looking at some of the graves, some of the graves were marked all the way from, I would say 1834. I saw one as far as back as 1826. So we're looking at someone who died plenty generations ago. And so this is the reason why I was saying this government is going to make this transition very slowly, because if they make the transition too quick, it's going to shock and outrage people. And the religious community are going to have a field day. And whether you are religious or not, it's going to cause an uproar when you're dealing with that type of transition. That will cause a great uproar. So what would happen is there would be chaos and confusion. And so you have to make this transition very delicately. And they're preparing everyone for that with online. You want to spend some time with your loved one? There's a link. You can write to them. Of course, they're never going to get the message, but that's the security blanket that the government has supplied you with in exchange of the cemeteries. Now, as crazy as this may sound, you can think what you want, but research it yourself. Research it yourself. Because I was told this way back in 1996. And you're looking at it right today. You're looking at it today. When I was in Atlanta and I went to the King Center, I was talking to the sister out there who was a security guard, and how their tomb is right outside their church on the, I would say the left-hand side of the church if you're standing in front of the church. And it sits in some water. Both him and Coretta are in that huge tomb. And I asked the security guard, are their remains really in there? And she says, yes. So that made me wonder. I wonder how long this is going to be here. Because you can't remove that right now. Because the King family is too well known. However, that's not a cemetery either. It's just that everything is going into another state of morality when it's going to be considered immoral during that transition, because it's not what people have been made used to. So there's another trend, culture coming in a whole lot of areas that we've been used to, programmed and conditioned to perceive as the norm. All of those things are going to change. And a whole lot of that is going to, social media is going to have a whole lot to do with that. So is that going to help with people with attachments? I spoke on that in the other video. They're purposely raising the price of funerals to put the price of funerals purposely out of financial reach to the common public. And they are decreasing the cost of cremations to a very affordable $500. You can have one of your loved ones cremated for $500. And you can take their ashes with you. And if you want to visit them, you have the internet. And at the same time, you have their ashes. It may sound crazy, but in a few years, it's going to become the norm. So this transition that is going on in this world, not only in this area, but in a whole lot of other areas that I could mention, things are changing. But as things are changing, what is that doing to the human being? Is the human being being desensitized? If not totally desensitized, they're going to become more desensitized. And therefore, the common status of being sensible and sensitive is going to drop because of the rise of technology. I hope that's understood. So we're going in a direction in this society that's going to be considered cold by our elders before us, because that's what's going on right now. That's what's going on right now. So this is one of the reasons why, when I was studying the life of Yeshua, he didn't have any attachments, and I've said it plenty of times. All he cared about was doing the work. And if you understand him, and if you understand why he made certain moves in his life, you will find yourself understanding a whole lot of things when it comes to very sensitive and common things transpiring. If you understand him, he wasn't desensitized. He just didn't have any attachments. Any attachments. When his father Joseph passed, he left. Unknowingly of his mother, he left for 18 years. He didn't say goodbye to his mother. because he would have to have some attachments in order to say, well, I need to say goodbye to my mother. He was gone for 18 years and he came back. And as soon as he returned, he didn't go home like the common person would say, well, first thing I need to do, I need to go home and let my mother know that I'm alive because I know she's been wondering if I was dead or alive. He didn't think like that. He didn't have any attachments in that era. Attachments in terms of the psychological method, that most people would think in a certain way. The only thing that he was concerned about was doing the work. That's all he cared about. No attachments. His priorities were in order. Now, that's one of the reasons why I made those videos. Were the teachings of Yeshua considered cruel? A lot of people didn't understand those videos, but that's fine. But come to understand what the Buddha meant when he said attachments bring about pain. There's certain areas of the living journey that it is best not to be attached to certain things, certain people, certain ways of thinking, certain ways of feeling, because even our thought process holds attachments. The way we allow ourselves to feel or to choose to feel, that's a form of attachments. We have to die to all of those things. We have to die to all of those things so that we will live a life to where we will be conditioned to the degree that less things would affect us in a evil manner, emotionally and psychologically. So with that being said, I'm just gonna end this because I'm very tired. It's been a rough 2 days off, and so I may touch on this again. It all depends. But everyone have a good night. Stay human. Have a good night. In my previous video or series about attachments and how difficult and even dangerous that they could be to us, I appreciate all of the nice emails that were sent. And I appreciate all of the understanding that a whole lot of you got from that video. And it's helped you in a whole lot of different areas to be able to let go of the attachment to the organism and to accept and embrace them in the spiritual realm where the true impact is after the organism has stopped functioning. And you began to understand your loved ones in a whole another manner in terms of the impact that they had on your life, not only in terms of memory, but in the very present moment, if that is understood. Those who understand that in the spiritual sense, their psychological gifts and their emotional state, even if it's called spiritual, emotional, or however y'all choose to pronounce it. But I'm just happy that a lot of you understood that, where some people found themselves being offended. And I didn't take offense to it because that is another part of people um, being attached to the organism. You know how people say, I miss my dad, I miss my mother, I miss my brother. They are missing the fact that their loved ones are no longer present in the physical. They have not yet understood that, they believe that their spirit has been set free. They know that the organism is no longer functioning. And so even though they understand that, they still haven't accepted the fact that they are now presently with them in the spirit and of the spirit. I'll put it like this. Have you ever been going about your day and say that your mind is not even on one of your loved ones who passed away? And all of a sudden, something that they said that was humorous, all of a sudden, it comes to you and you're laughing. You're laughing. You know what? I remember when my uncle said thus and so, and you're laughing. You just had a visitation from them. Now, this is not some mystical, majestical stuff that I'm speaking. This is the reality of it. This is by way of understanding how the spiritual world operates. It's a visitation. And I'm pretty certain a whole lot of you, experience that all the time. You start laughing, or, you know, even when all of a sudden you think of one of your loved ones and you become sad. You have to understand sadness, grief, and all of those have a dual component attached to them. Like, say all of a sudden you get sad and you sit down and you shed a few tears of your loved ones. Just understand that that's only because you miss their physical presence, but they are still living. And as time moves on, even in that, even in those few minutes that you're no longer grieving for them, you just simply remembering them for who they were and you know, who they are. And you can no longer physically communicate with them. Those people are no longer coming from around the corner. You can't pick up and call them anymore. Right now, they're at a state of being to where everything has become internal in regards to pleasant memories, sad memories, and sudden feelings that you get, sudden humorous feelings like that. You have to be able to, you have to be able to connect with them and allow them to connect with you on a whole nother level. And in coming to know and understand this, it helps you understand that there is really and truly no death. Once the organism has run its course, they are like a butterfly being freed from their cocoon. And so you should be happy for them that they're no longer suffering. Because going through seeing your loved ones be sick and you're laying, and they're laying in their beds and they're suffering. Sometimes we really need to understand that these forms of attachments it's not only bringing us pain, but it's bringing them pain because they're trying to hold on for us. They're trying to hold on for us. So we have to, if we truly love them, then we should celebrate when this organism ends and they're freed from it. I recall a friend of mine in Chicago, his name was Joey. And I knew his mother. And after I've been out here for a number of years, I called Joey because I wanted to talk to him and reconnect with my school buddy. And so his mother answered the phone and she said, David, Joey has passed away. And I'm like, really? She said, yeah, he passed away. She said, he passed away December the 26th. I was like, really? Right after Christmas? Yeah. She said, right after Christmas. She said, let me tell you something. She said, on the 23rd, she said, because after the doctors had told us that there's nothing more that they can do for Joy, we said, well, are we able to just bring him home? And she said, the doctor said yes. She said, now, on the 23rd, I was sitting in the living room. And all of a sudden, I heard this coarse sound, like, oh, oh. And she said, when I entered Joey's room, of course, it was a very foul smell because he was in the process of dying. And she said, when I looked at Joey, she said, I knew that Joey was on his way. She said, so I got down next to Joey's ear. And she said to me, she said, I asked Joey, are you able to wait until after Christmas? Are you able to wait until after Christmas? She said, Joey told her with a real faint voice, yes, Mom, I'm able to wait. And she went on and she said, December the 26th, she said, I went into his bedroom and Joey had passed. And she went on talking and I said, wait a minute, hold on. She said, what is it? I'm like, wait a minute. I said, think about the words that you asked him. You asked Joey, are you able to wait? In other words, do you have the capabilities to prolong your dying organism past Christmas? And he told you, his answer was yes. I said, do you understand how important and how powerful that is? She said, David, what do you mean? I'm like, listen. He was in a state of dying. He was in a state of suffering. You said that you knew and you felt that Joey was going to die that night on the 23rd. But you went in there and you asked him, are you able to wait until after Christmas? And he told you yes. So what is it that Joey knew about that organism at that moment? What power and ability did the Creator give him to prolong his dying organism past Christmas and on to the 26th? You made an agreement with him. past Christmas, and you said Joey passed away on the 26th, the day after Christmas. I said, think about this. When Yeshua was on the cross, okay, he was suffering with his organism. He was suffering with it. He held on until it was time to give up the ghost. I said, listen to me carefully. When I give you something, I'm in power to give you something. I can pick up my cell phone and I have the power and the ability to give you something. All I have to do is pass it over to you. That's power and ability. And we're dealing with time. The time from when I decided to pass my cell phone over to you. So you're dealing with time, power. I mention that because Yeshua gave up the ghost after he said, it is finished. It is time to exit the organism and go unto God. I told her, Joey didn't die. He didn't die. He did the same thing Yeshua did. He gave up the ghost. Joey didn't die. Joey left. He left. Joey said, the agreement that I made with my mother, it is finished. Joey left. He gave up the ghost. He was in power to give way from the organism. Some people die. Some people leave. Brother Joey left. That's why he was able to wait. So basically what is being said, during that time, some of us will know exactly what time and how close this organism is moving towards the ultimate death. See, it's easy for us to stand over them and be really, unconsciously selfish. Please don't go, mama. Please don't go. And your mother is suffering. And even in that sense, and this may offend some of you, sometimes we forget how much we love our parents and our loved ones, because we are suffering with this selfish sense of attachment to them. Please don't go. And yet still we're looking down at them and they're suffering. They're suffering. And they're trying to hold on for us. They're trying to hold on for us. So some of us at that state have an infinite knowledge of this organism, even though they're close to the end. They have a clear perception of this organism now. And so when someone comes and asks them, are you able to wait from the 23rd and after Christmas? They have an infinite knowledge and understanding and endurance to do so. They're able to fulfill that. And so Joey's mother, when Joey had agreed with his mother, yes, Mom, I'm able to wait. That helped her know exactly when her son's organism was going to expire. So that helped her deal with the reality of the death of his organism. And so as we went forward talking, And I explained that to her. I said, she said, David, now that you say that, when he did pass on, there was sadness, but there was a peace present. There was a peace present. She said, because like you mentioned, we made an agreement and he knew that he was able to wait. And you're right. Joey left. Joey didn't die. There is no death. There's just an expiration date for this organism. So I say again, attachments can sometimes bring about pain. And the dual component of attachments is having the ability to let go. Having the ability to let go is recognizing that to hold on to something that the Creator has evidently said, this point in this person's living condition is over. And that goes for different experiences as well. It's time when people say it's time to move on, because there's nothing else left to either be said or done. So we must move forward and don't look back. Like the woman in the Bible, I believe it was Lot's wife, when they were on their way moving forward, and she looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt, which doesn't imply you're going to go into some desert land or some area and you're going to have this woman type shaped statue of a woman looking back and it's going to be salt. No. The whole thing is she had an attachment to the past. And when she moved forward, she looked back at the past and it made her bitter. It's a pillar of salt. So a strong bitterness had built up in her because she was not able to let go of the past and embrace the present and accept the present for what it is. So the whole thing with this, and I'm getting ready to shut this down because I don't really want this video to be too long. The whole thing is understanding death as not the ultimate finalization of those in whom we love. It's just a transition period to a higher state and more powerful and more aware and more conscious state of being. We just have to get to know them on that level and allow them to communicate with us on that level, that we may know that state of being actually exists. And if you think about it, those who have a connection with the Creator on a personal level, the same way we have connections with our personal loved ones, it's the same type of connection that you have with the Creator from the spiritual realm to your earthly realm. It's the same. They're on that spiritual realm now. So allow them to show you how to communicate with them. Now, not all of you are Star Wars fans, but at the end of the last Star Wars, when everything was broken up, I believe this was the episode Revenge of the Sith. A character, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was talking to this other character that is well known named Yoda. They were conversing. Yoda said to Obi-Wan, I have come in contact with your previous master, Qui-Gon Jinn, who was Obi-Wan's, you might as well say, teacher. And Obi-Wan said, Qui-Gon Jinn? He said, yes, I've communicated with him. And Yoda had told him, I will teach you how to commune with him. To commune with him, I will teach you. So basically, what Yoda was implying to him and telling him is that I will teach you how to communicate with that of the spiritual realm, that you may be able to communicate with one another. Now, people may say this man has lost his mind. He's talking about Star Wars. No, I'm talking about you and your loved one. I'm talking about you, and I'm talking about me, and I'm talking about us. That's who I'm referring to, brothers or sister. Those who passed on have only passed on from the organism. Get to know them in the spiritual realm and throw away everything that you studied and heard. All of this chakra and all that stuff. No. Don't put a title on anything. Just be still and open up your heart and your mind and allow the Creator and those who are within that realm explain that state of existence to you. And with that being said, I'm going to have to move on from this because I have some things to do before I go to the plantation work. So with all of this being said, like I always say, I hope that this helped everyone. And I, again, thank you for your kind emails about the attachment video. And everyone have a good evening, and everyone stay human, and everyone stay aware and blessed. Have a good night. Stay human. Stay human, please. Peace.